Hello and welcome to the season 16 finale here at Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
I'm Ari, and I was just running, so that's why I'm sweaty. Sorry about that.
Tara.
I'm Nick. And I'm Josh. And Tara, it's been a few weeks, but it's great to have you back.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, good to have you back, Tara.
Already. We had a very eventful season here on Literary Gladiators, and many of the people from season 15 came back. Plus, Kayla and Nick returned for this 16th season of our show.
Well, it's good to see you again, Nick. I mean, I was out here in the last session, but I didn't mention it. It's good to see you. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. And for this final episode of the season, we're going to be going over a poem by Anne Sexton called Love Letter Written in a Burning Building. And the discussion starter I have is this. Love Letter Written in a Burning Building was Anne Sexton's very last poem. 1 week after writing this poem, she took her life. Sexton had written on the topics of death and suicide before, but this was her very last. Where can you sense the finality in this poem, if you are able to do so?
So, I think the first thing that's important to mention here is that Anne Sexton had bipolar disorder, which is a very serious mental condition that can cause a fluctuation of different emotions and just makes you think a little bit differently. I know that I was initially diagnosed with bipolar. It was a misdiagnosis, but I spent most of my life with my psychiatrist telling me, yeah, you have bipolar disorder. So I kind of have an idea of where it's coming from. But when it talks about finality in this poem, you have a lot of things in this poem that talk about like the ending of things, like the burning of the building, and it really, the entire poem seems to be about like a general, like a love that's like really, really strong but also damaging at the same time, but it's something that just happens, and love is just a thing. And I know that and Sexton, you could tell there's a bit of a foreshadowing, foreboding feeling in reading this, Josh.
And I think one of the big questions you got to ask yourself is, did she want this to be published? And I think that there's a good... the way that it is written, it feels very intimate to the point that this may have... There's a good chance that this was not supposed to be read by the general public.
This does sound like it was directed to one person, or maybe a small, mostly one person.
And I think in
maybe
particular, it had to do with a lesbian affair. After a close reading, the details, and some background information, because she was married to a man. She had 2 daughters. Her and her husband divorced a year before she died. However, she had been in an affair with a woman named Anne Wilder and had written about her before. But, well, this is a bit more... it's not necessarily specific. I think you get a great sense with the close reading of the particular details in here as to, for instance, she makes mention to, toward the beginning of the poem, I wore movies in my eyes and you wore eggs in your tunnel, which, the movies in my eyes, it seemed, to me, I get that sense that...
It's like a memory kind of, or like just some kind of memory, movies,
yeah.
memories.
I think that just the idea of thinking about love scenes and romance that could be found in films, whereas Eggs in Your Tunnel is a little bit more sexual in its nature. And then, but she makes mention to playing with sheets in the bed, sheets in the bathtub.
And then, well, isn't it playing in the bed? Like,
Yeah, well, I don't think, it was sheets, and then playing in the bathtub, right?
Yeah, like the time in the
I
bathtub.
don't remember, but
the bathtub.
But like the fact that she repeats some of these words like sheets, and then also like she also mentions icebox and crate and a couple other words. It's really emphasizing just how strong whatever this relationship or whatever this person she feels about this person. It said something near the end I'll go back to the foreboding thing. One of the lines near the end of the poem had something to do with something about the asbestos gloves and waiting for flies. And when you hear "waiting for flies" at the very, if you could repeat the line for me, because I may have missed part of it.
The very last stanza begins with, "Despite my asbestos gloves, the cough is filling me with black, and a red powder seeps through my veins."
And then something about flies.
The very last part
It was
is
like a Russian.
Yeah, the Russian street about
Russian
and
Yeah.
the reason it's Russian street is because Anne Sexton wrote this during the Cold War. It was in the 70s. But what was the last line again?
"The flames making the sound of the horse beaten and beaten, being beaten and beaten. The whip is adoring its human triumph,
No, but there was something about
while the
flies.
flies wait, blow by blow, straight from United Fruit Ink."
So when I hear like something like "when the flies wait," that you talked about what in this feels like finality. That feels like finality to me. It's like flies obviously are like
Waiting for.
Yeah,
death or
we did
rise.
we
It's
did
the
a-
level of decomposition.
We did a review a while ago of Peter Capaldi's speech in Doctor Who Heaven Sent. One of the things that happened in that episode is there was this monster that had flies all over it because the woman had just died. So when you're thinking of like waiting for flies, it sounds like. Now when I read it, I did not know that Anne Sexton had committed suicide, which is what I heard. That's what you said, or what I heard.
Yes,
You said she died a week later. I didn't realize it was that serious, but it did definitely have a finite feeling to it, like you mentioned in your discussion starter.
I think that one of the things I think that there's a lot of allusions that she makes to this being the last step in her life, and that this is because this was written on September 27th, 1974, and she took her life exactly 1 week later on October 4th, 1974. And she had said that, "But today I set the bed afire, and smoke is filling the room. It is getting hot enough for the walls to melt, and the icebox a gluey white tooth. I have on a mask in order to write my last words, and they are just for you, and I will place them in the icebox saved for vodka and tomatoes, and perhaps they will last." Which...
What did she do? Like when her manner of committing suicide?
She put on a fur coat, she poured herself a glass of vodka, and she started her car engine and let the breathed in the carbon monoxide to kill her.
Really? Yeah, the wording sounds very similar.
Which it very much, because she said before she was telling somebody, a friend of hers, or one time she had spoken about suicide to a friend of hers, and the friend stopped her, and she was hospitalized and went through the necessary steps to, quote unquote, getting back on the right track. She said that this time, when the next time she was going to do it, she wasn't going to say anything to anybody. And this is very reflective of what it is that she wasn't going to, what she was concealing from people.
And that's kind of the scary thing about not just bipolar, but like general mental illnesses of that severity. And before I say this, I'm not stigmatizing anything about bipolar. I'm actually supporting it. And if you suffer from that, I'm on your side. I've been through similar issues. But when a lot of creative people like Anne Sexton, Kurt Cobain, a couple other people who have suffered from similar mental illnesses, they have a habit of taking their life early. That's like a factual thing. It's not like, not everyone with bipolar, because there are people with bipolar who are extremely successful and lead very fulfilling lives. But it's just sad that is a common factor, at least in the past. It's been a common factor when medications weren't quite there. They weren't established as
Or to
much
find
yet.
the right cocktail.
Or to find the cocktail or
that's
combination.
For you.
So, I mean, the way Anne Sexton writes, not just in this poem, but in some of her earlier poems, is very, I want to say foreboding again, and I've used that word a lot. Like it's very dark, not dark, but I guess just has a lot of pressure. Deep. Yes,
Deep.
that's the word
Yes.
I'm looking for.
I think that the piece of work that I had mentioned, I think that she just wants to remain alive long enough to put forth this final note of hers, and then give up to the to that urge that's consuming her. Because it's, to me, that mask feels like a gas mask. That, and when she takes it off, she's conceding to the environment around her, and whatever may happen is what will happen.
I have an additional question. Well, not really a discussion starter, just an additional question for the three of you. Do you think that she, in this scenario, wanted to, like, cleanse herself of something that she did that she thinks was wrong before but she knew that she was going to kill herself? Do you think this is like an admission or a cleansing of some kind?
Cause burning could be like a cleansing,
Purifying.
like rebirth type, like the phoenix, or just purifying burn.
Yeah, but I'm curious what you three think about
I
that.
didn't necessarily see it in that light.
I
either,
know.
Because I think that if she was writing it, I think that this would mean that she would be writing it or she'd be writing a poem that she would want others to see.
Right. Well, not necessarily. I mean, there are some times where people, like, they do something to make themselves better, or they try to, do it, but they don't do it publicly. That's why, like, the thing with, pardon me if I'm getting this wrong because I'm not Catholic, but the confession booth, that's usually one-on-one, isn't it?
Yes.
So, like, maybe it's something, I'm just
That's a
just
possibility,
throwing it.
but I don't think she's doing. I don't think this is her outlet of doing it. I think that she's more so. I think the reason that this was written was to express her feelings to the subject that she's writing about.
So you think this is a direct, like,
her
talking to expression
who
kind
she's
of
referring to Foxy.
You
Now,
did,
I-
you did mention
That's,
she was a confession, so that makes
Yeah,
sense.
she is a
kinda
confessional
Kind
poet.
of like she loves her, but like she's in that state of mind where she doesn't want to be on this earth anymore. That's what I think. What are you gonna say?
Kind of like with Ari, I went into this not knowing the history behind this story, and I looked at it as, like you said, the love affair. But now looking back at it and knowing what she did afterwards, it definitely shows a lot. I've suffered with depression, and I've had attempts in the past, and I've written poems where it was just like, I just need to get this stuff out. I just need to get it out. I don't want to share it with anybody. And honestly, from what I've written and from hearing that, it sounds like she didn't want this to be heard.
It does sound like this may have been published posthumously.
Yes, it was. It was published a few years later.
Yeah.
But the another thing about what Nick, bouncing off what Nick said, is that, like, people express themselves differently. So I think that this is her. I think I know I kind of alluded to something else, but now Nick's mentioned it. It does seem like a way to express in the way that she knows how, or at least the way that she wants to.
Because, like, I know if I am trying to say something, I can write it down in a poem and have somebody portray it a certain way, but they can portray it one way when it actually means a completely different way.
That's music in a nutshell.
Exactly.
And poetry and art in a nutshell.
Pretty. What did I want to go about?
There's something about I think, like, using the word icebox is interesting because I think, like, back in that time in, like, the 70s, they probably used refrigerators more.
Yeah, by the 70s it was.
So I think it's interesting that is the word I just think it's interesting that that's the word that she chose. I don't know if maybe it flows better, or it probably does flow better because it's a shorter word, but
Yeah.
I just think it was an interesting choice of
I
word.
think it also alludes to what she may feel is a more a different kind of time.
Right. And then, like, an icebox, obviously, or a refrigerator, whatever, it's a place where you store things. Preserve things, yeah. Excuse me. But the whole thing is it's like a burning thing, so anything that she mentioned putting stuff in the icebox, like was a note or a letter or something? Something like
put
that.
In a
Something of the other person's, but anyway, just putting stuff in the icebox while this is all going on is like
With a tomato and something else.
Yeah, vodka and tomato juice.
She was
No, that was
knocking at our delectable knocks.
yeah.
But
And then what was
oh,
that?
she had it saved for. She had a. She was.
Like
She'll put the
story.
note. She'll put this.
Note, yeah.
She'll put this poem in the icebox that was saved for the vodka and tomatoes.
Right. And also that right there sounds like it's a one-on-one thing, just maybe saving it
Yes.
for someone. But what was that reference at the end about the United Fruit Inc.? I didn't.
The very United Fruit Inc. was viewed with a very corrupt kind of reputation, where it was it's viewed very similarly to how we view people like George Soros and the Koch brothers and other entities that bring with it corruption or playing dirty, like big pharma or chemical companies or oil companies, where because that's where the flies are coming from. In that case, going off of that decomposition, it's a just another opportunity for them to greedily feed off of what remains of the dead, and that's pretty much how Anne Sexton is cynically.
It's kind of like capitalism in a way, or a little bit different than that.
It depends on how, maybe at its worst state, but it depends on how you. It depends on how you view the situation. Anne Sexton's viewing what the United Fruit Inc. or the United Fruit Company, the role that it plays in the world, in a negative light.
Yeah. It
So-
sounds like she really was just not happy with
Yes.
what was going on around her. She obviously seemed to, ironically, care about what was going on in the world, but not really leave enough room for herself. Which, I admit, I'm guilty of that too. Not to these extents, of course, but there are times where, like, I always want to. And this is also important because of the bipolar and just in general. Like, I am the kind of person who always wants to check in with my friends to make sure they're okay, but it's also because, like, I do have a little bit of a habit of being a little bit more caring about others than myself, which is something, of course, I'm working on. But that's why I try to call Josh, like, every month if I can, because I just want to check in and just do my due diligence if I can. And I just kind of wish that someone was kind of. I mean, obviously, you said someone had reported it the first time, but I just wish that maybe Anne Sexton had someone or something in her life that would kind of work with her, so to speak.
It seemed like, even though the first time she had the help, it just seemed like she wanted to stay in that state.
Yeah, stuck in that.
She wanted to be stuck in that mindset. She didn't want, she seriously did not want to be here, so she's going to find any way to do that. That's what it seemed like.
Anne Sexton was not a happy person, and she was not a very. She was not a good person either. I mean, it's unfortunate to say that that a lot of things in the way that she responded to them were not very pleasant, but the fact that she physically, psychologically, and sexually abused her children, it doesn't really bring to light the fact that she led a very she wasn't trying to make the best out of the world and making it a better place for other people too. That doesn't mean, I mean, she's a great writer, but that doesn't mean she's a great person.
It's possible also how much of that is linked to just the general disposition of some people with mental illness, and how much of that was actually her choice. So, I mean, it could also been, I don't know anything about her parents, so it could have been also how she was brought up. So, but yeah, it doesn't sound like Anne Sexton, based on this poem. It seems like she just wants it to end, but she wants to express this first before she, I mean, like I said, the waiting for the flies line, some of the other, there's just a general thing, the burning building, it just seems like
Honestly, it kind of reminded me a little bit like David Bowie. Like all of his music was just wonderful, and then the last album he dropped was all about death, just misery, and then he wound up dying.
Right.
I remember watching that very last video of his too.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that we wanted to touch upon?
I just think that, viewers, if you are going to read this poem by Anne Sexton, a couple of things I would suggest is Josh has a collection here of all of Anne Sexton's stories, but just reading it like all the stories at once, all the poems at once, and then just going through this one like any other ordinary poem I wouldn't advise it, because this one it takes a couple times to read. It really is.
In order to understand properly.
Right. It's a significant matter of quality over quantity, because this poem's only like 50 lines long. It's only 10 stanzas or so. So it's good to like find a space where
4
you
stanzas,
can.
50 lines.
Okay, sorry. A time that you can kind of be in a space
Good
where you
headspace.
can read this.
Good,
Like,
very good headspace.
yes. That's my suggestion if you are interested, which I was very interested. This was a good choice, Josh.
Thank you. I think that it was, given that this is the finale of a season, I think that a work of finality would be a good way to wrap up a season. Maybe not, maybe this may be morbid, but it's
Maybe not in a
still
positive light, but
a definition of finality. And I know that we had discussed another time, you were more into selected collections rather than complete collections.
well, it depends on the situation. But I think with this particular poem, you just need more time and space to absorb it. I think there are some things that I mean, actually, I do prefer complete collections, but like in some cases, if there's so much that you can't just absorb it all, then highlights. But like I do prefer kind of.
I mean, that would be abridged if it took out certain lines.
Right.
But if it's, I mean, it would be, in a selected, it would be complete poems, but it would not be everything that they've written. And I think that this is I think that it's valuable to have everything that Anne Sexton has written in one collection now, because it really says a lot about her and what she's contributed. But my stance as far as complete versus selected is concerned, because I know Dr. Bordelon, who's a well-admired American literature instructor that I had back in college, he was more into the selected collections. However, when it comes to that thing, they determine what is in there, and perhaps what is your favorite work may not be in there. It would be like having a complete collection of, or it would be like having a selected collection of the Beatles music
Like
and
the
not
number
include
ones.
A Day in the Life.
Yeah, like the Beatles 1 is a selected collection. It doesn't even have Day in the Life. But
Just
I
has
think
all the one.
It had the number one hits.
Yeah,
That's it.
Day in
That's
Life
why it's
is-
called ones.
it's the best
Was it?
song.
Well, there was a Beatles 2 collection though, and
Was there?
yeah, there's all the number 2 hits as well.
I don't.
I know they
remember
did
that
it with Elvis. They had Elvis's number 1, and they had his number 2
one.
hits.
Don't remember there being a Beatles second, but maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong.
But I agree. I think that you would want a complete Beatles collection, even if it's X amount of CDs.
Yeah, I don't care. I want the whole thing.
You want to be able to listen to everything and then determine what your favorite song is.
Right. And I think of the three Anne Sexton poems that we've gone over on Literary Gladiators, I think this one is probably I don't know, it's probably the deepest for sure. I'd have to look at the other two to really kind of say which one's my favorite, but this one definitely, of the other two, this one's like the most deep. It goes into the most, what were the other two we did?
In season 2, we went over In Celebration of My Uterus.
Right.
In season 4, we went over The Starry Night.
Which is the Vincent Van Gogh.
It was a response to the Vincent Van Gogh painting.
Yeah. So I just this one was very, like, even more deep than
Yes.
some other poetry I've read. This is just, it's fascinating, but it's also unfortunate, and it's also just powerful. And I just want to say, like, if you go through these struggles, I support you. I think we all try to
Yes.
support you as much as
Yes.
possible.
And then there's
So-
also that helplines if you are contemplating suicide.
Right, because I don't think that was a thing back then. I mean,
No.
institutionalization
No.
was much different back then.
Yeah, but now there is, and
Yeah.
that help is out there if you want it. So.
Did you guys wanted to say anything before we wrapped up?
No, I mean, I thought it was a very deep and insightful poem, from both the love aspect and knowing the history. Like, it was well written, even though it was very deep and dark.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about the mask could also be like a mask, like smoke mask, and it could be a mask. You're masking yourself.
Yeah.
I think it does have a double meaning to it.
Yeah.
I think that both of them would be. I mean, I imagine the gas mask, but that also could be the
Mental mask.
the
If
mental
you,
mask.
If you also think about a true gas mask back in like the 70s, they were big. They had like a thing over your eyes and everything. Not just like today where it's like comes over here and big like little tiny things. It was a huge gas mask. Was like.
But yeah, it would do enough to help her blend into society.
Yes.
Even if it concealed what it is that she truly wanted to say.
And part of the reason that I kind of more don't prefer to wear a mask is simply because if you wear a mask, you have a different perspective of yourself and of others, and then it starts to form some negative, possibly anxious-based or depressive-based thoughts in your head, and then it can lead to internal drama and then emotion stuff. So I think just accepting who you are is a tough but important thing.
And accepting yourself is a real struggle sometimes.
Yes.
Yes, coming from someone who knows a lot about that.
Same here. Yes.
It's hard.
If you are interested in reading anything that Anne Sexton has written as far as her poetry is concerned, here is the complete poems of Anne Sexton. This includes everything from when she started writing, back in beginning with You, Dr. Martin in 1960, all the way to Love Letter Written in a Burning Building, written in 1974. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to our 16th season of the show. We had an amazing time going over some amazing works. I would like to thank Nick for making a valiant return.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Tara for all of her wonderful dedication. She was at every session this season.
Yes.
I want to thank Ari for his participation and his contribution to our intro. He always does a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Behind the camera, I'd like to thank Dan. He's been here for 15 straight seasons.
Woo!
Nice.
I'd like to thank Charlie, who's been here for all 16 seasons of the show. He did an amazing job. I want to thank Larry, who's been here for 14 seasons. Ari, too, has been here for 14 seasons. I want to thank Professor Hartman, who you know as Rennie. I want to thank Cindy, Kayla, who made a comeback, Jesse, and did I say Larry? I said Larry.
You said Larry.
Yes.
Well, you're forgetting. We also got to thank Mr. Humble here, Josh.
Yes, we wouldn't have this
Because
channel.
we would not have the show without Josh. So
Nope.
Josh, thank you for...
If he's the mastermind behind everything.
Thank you.
Thank
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Yes.
And you guys would not have the show without Josh here, so...
And be sure to join us for our 17th season, where we will be revisiting some more works. We are going to decide which ones we put on the schedule. And we will be taping it, and it should be on its way pretty soon. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to join us next time. And for now, and as always, we encourage you to keep reading.
And subscribe and check out our Patreon.